6322. You watched as the riots in Los Angeles accelerated. And you wondered where the police were. Well, just a few days before, the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Bradley, had made a speech saying that they were ready in case the verdict was not guilty because they expected trouble and that they had a plan to deal with it. Chief Gates also gave a speech in which he said that they had a plan all written out. Everybody had been trained, that they'd been working on this ever since the Watts riots, that they were expecting trouble if the verdict was not guilty, and that he had even set aside monies to pay the extra officers that he would have to call back to duty in order to quell any problems that arose. Yet the officers that were in the streets stood and watched as buildings were torched, as looters and rioters ran through the streets, and one on videotape, one officer broke down and began to cry. It's on videotape. And the reporter asked him what was the matter. Why was he behaving this manner? He said he was frustrated. There was nothing he could do because they had been ordered not to interfere at all. No additional officers were called to duty. No National Guard were brought into the city. The leaders of the city, Mayor Tom Bradley, Congresswomen and Congressmen, city council members made inflammatory statements which were, in fact, inciting to riot. Members of Congress, civil rights leaders all over the country made inflammatory statements which were inciting people to riot. The Congresswoman from South Central Los Angeles was asked by a reporter on television. I was watching this myself and taped it, and I have it on videotape, along with the other things that I said is on tape. Was asked if she would make a public plea for the rioters to stop rioting and stop looting. She said, "No, I will not do that. I will advise my people not to put themselves in a position where they will get hurt." But she would not make a plea for them to stop rioting and stop looting. How do you like that? And she wasn't the only one. Nobody tried to do anything until so much damage was done and so many people were hurt that it gave George Bush the justification he needed that without a national declaration of emergency, without being asked by the state of California, he could send troops in, federal troops, to the streets of Los Angeles. He could implement FEMA in Los Angeles to test whether Americans are ripe for capitulation. And the results of the test is yes, they are. Nobody complained. Nobody asked the right questions. Nobody did the right thing. And you had federal troops standing on the street corners of an American city. And the Federal Emergency Management Agency took over all important functions of the city. The test went off like clockwork. And I don't care where you are in America, eventually, your city is next. Americans are so complacent and have been living in fantasy land so long that they are easily manipulated into any position that is desired by by those who want to take this country away from us. And it's happening. You're losing your rights, you're losing your Constitution, you're losing your country. And there'll come a day when you'll look at each other and say, what happened? How did this happen? How did I get to be a slave in the New World Order? And I got to tell you something, folks. You've all got brains, but you're not using them. If you use those brains, you wouldn't need anybody like me or anyone else to tell you what's happening. Most of it is just common sense. It also requires work. You got to go dig for information. You got to find out what's going on. Oh, that word work. That sort of does it to you, doesn't it? This is your wake-up call. This is the hour. This is the hour of the time. Your time. Our time. This is the only time there ever was or ever will be. This is the hour during which you will decide your and our collective futures. Because you're either going to wake up and get responsible. It's another word people do not like. And stick your neck out and take a risk and help us save the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in this country. Are you going to close your eyes like you always have? And you're going to let it all go down. Right down the drain. This nation is the sum total of the completion of all the efforts of every human being that have ever lived on the face of this earth. Before this nation was created, no man in history on this earth had ever been free. Ever. Now, I've had people point to England and point to the Roman Empire and tell me that those people were free. No, they weren't. They could be bonked on the head in the middle of the night and pressed into service on His Majesty's ships. They could be rounded up and beheaded in secret. And I could go on and on and on. They weren't free. We're never free. If you were born in the wrong class, you never had any opportunity either. No, this nation did it. This nation was the great experiment brought about by our forefathers to see if man could really rule himself or not. To see if it was true what man had been saying all those years, thousands and thousands of years, that he didn't need kings and he didn't need masters and he didn't need to be a slave because he was capable of using his own brain and ruling himself. Well, we know that's a joke, don't we? Because our forefathers gave us the opportunity, gave us the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, every tool that we ever needed to stay free and rule ourselves. And we blew it. Through our apathy, our ignorance, our stupidity, our complacency, our unwillingness to speak up because you might lose some stupid job that you go down the street and get another one in a minute. Or you might lose your television set in every room. No, rather than do those things, you let your country be destroyed from within. From within, just like had always been predicted. And our forefathers said, as long as we had the right to keep and bear arms, nobody could ever destroy this nation but this nation itself. And that's That's what's happening. That is what's happening. You wonder why the schools are going to hell in a handwagon? Well, there's a textbook that was just put out this year that said Truman solved the Korean problem with the use of atomic weapons. When was the last time any of you went down to your school and read the textbooks that your children are taught from? Many of you realize your children are being taught to use debit cards instead of cash. How many of you realize that in these schools there are big posters with the world, and underneath it says "Our Home"? How many of you understand that the children are not being taught the real history of this nation or the Constitution or the Bill of Rights? They're being taught world government. It's true. All you got to do is go down and look. One woman was so angry at me at one of my lectures that she got up and screamed and stormed out because I dared to tell her that her children in school were not learning the proper history, nor were they being taught the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. She later called me at my home and apologized because she went to her school to get the materials to prove me wrong and discredit me, and found out that I was absolutely right. And she was so infuriated that the school had to call the police to get her removed from the office. She was demanding explanations. Of course, she didn't get any. Nobody will get any. What you have to do is clean house. Clean house. That's the only way things are going to get changed. But if enough people don't wake up real soon, there's not going to be any changes except for the worse. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the timetable for the completion of the elimination of all sovereign nation states and the bringing to fruition the one world socialist totalitarian state is the year 2000. That's right, folks, the year 2000. Now, you can also write to me. I want to hear your comments. I want to know if you're listening. I want to know what you think about this show. And I need to know how many people are listening. If I'm talking to 2 people out there, then this just isn't worth it. But if there are a lot of you listening, I need to know it. I need to know if I'm going to stay on the air. I hope there are a lot of people listening. Send me a postcard. William Cooper, Post Office Box 3299, Camp Verde, Arizona, 86322. Send me a postcard, that's all. Just tell me how many people in your family listen, or neighbors if they come over. What you think of this radio show. And if you want to put something bad down there, that's okay. I've been called every name in the book. Doesn't bother me a bit. If you want to put something good down there, that's okay too. Love to hear that. And send it to me, William Cooper, Post Office Box 3299, Camp Verde, Arizona, 86322. It's P.O. Box 3299, Camp Verde, Arizona, 86322. Now, don't order books from me because I don't handle books and materials. You can also order tapes of this broadcast if you are not taping it yourself. And you're welcome. We recommend that you tape it yourself and make copies and send it to whoever you want. That's what we're all about. But if you want to order tapes, call Stan at 602-567-6109. That's 602-567-6109. Or you can write to Stan and ask him for a list of available materials at P.O. Box 889, Camp Verde, Arizona, 86322. That's P.O. Box 889, Camp Verde, Arizona, 86322. Now, please do that, folks. Send me that